Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speciale, you can take great honor to know that Mr. Moskowitz would have treated you with much more kindness had you been an illegal appearing before this committee.
That's a lie, but okay.
Mr. Romano, have you been deposed by this committee, sir?
No, not by this committee.
Would you be willing to participate in a deposition by this committee?
Absolutely.
That's going to happen. Mr. Chairman, the COVID-era government oppression was very real and impacted American citizens. Our freedom to travel the land was greatly restricted. Our freedom to congregate, our freedom to worship, our freedom to speak. The government oppression that America suffered in the COVID era leading up to the November election cycle of 2020 was unprecedented. The Biden FBI did penetrate legitimate First Amendment communications and groups of American patriots who had the audacity to object to government oppression. The Biden FBI, trained to manipulate and agitate, did foment rage within these groups of American patriots.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 45th Perspective. I'm glad you're joining me today for a deep dive into a recent Senate hearing that has been making waves across social media and the news cycles. Before we get into the heart of the analysis, if you find this kind of breakdown helpful, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and continue to provide this kind of content. And if you'd like to support the work we do here even further, please consider joining our community on Patreon at patreon.com/45thperspective. Your support keeps us independent and focused on the facts.
The November 2020 election cycle was compromised. The Biden FBI did have undercover agents and confidential informants embedded within the rally crowds on J4, J5, and J6. And the Biden FBI did conspire to entrap MAGA Americans prior to J6 and then successfully entrapped several hundred Americans on J6. The Biden FBI and DOJ did unrighteously persecute, arrest, and imprison entrapped Americans. The FBI Director Wray did lie to Congress repeatedly about all of this abhorrent government oppression against the American people. President Trump did rightfully pardon the Americans who fell prey to the Biden FBI and DOJ. And within months of his inauguration, the Trump FBI did identify and arrest the J6 pipe bomber suspect using only the evidence that had been in the possession of the Biden FBI since 2021. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to present for the record a letter dated January 11, 2021, to the Administrator of TSA, signed by Benny Thompson, then Chairman of Homeland Security Committee, and John Katko, the Ranking Member of Homeland Security Committee, a renowned moderate New York-leaning liberal Republican, now gone from Congress, identifying Trump supporters as insurrectionists and suggesting efforts by the TSA to disrupt the travel of white supremacists and other domestic terrorists, to quickly deny air carrier services to individuals identified as members of those groups, and to encourage efforts to identify and add to watch lists the perpetrators and members of American organizations that had the audacity to challenge the narrative that was presented under the COVID era and the oppression that the American people suffered.
Without objection.
Mr. Nance, regarding drawing from your expertise, long-standing with the FBI, can you find any reason, good sir, that the FBI would not have solved the pipe bomber crime based upon the evidence in their possession, including cellular analytics that we were advised by whistleblowers that under 200 possible cell numbers were identified and presented to the FBI and the illegitimate J6 original Liz Cheney committee? Why did the FBI not solve that crime, good sir?
Well, I think the rapidity of the Patel administration or directorship in solving this case demonstrates exactly why the Ray FBI failed to do so. I mean, as has been stated before, this was a matter of leadership. I think this is also a matter of messaging. I think that, and people need to understand the relationship between DOJ and the FBI, that the FBI investigates criminal activity, or should be, and DOJ conducts prosecutions.
But how could the FBI be that inept? I just ask you. To me, I believe it was purposeful. I believe they identified their suspects in the under 200 numbers, and none of them fit the profile of the so-called alleged white supremacist mega activists, so they stepped away from that investigation. I believe that there's no way they could be that inept. Mr. Chairman, my time has expired, but my passion on this subject has not.
The gentleman has yielded back. The chair notes that there is a lot of passion regarding this topic, and it is something that's passionate on both sides of the aisle here. And our objective, my objective in this committee, is to get to the truth of, without political bias, of what happened. And the question remains: how did the previous FBI go 5 years without even a lead, using the exact same data? No exception. I've talked to the FBI agents
Today, we are breaking down a highly charged session that centered on the role of the FBI, government transparency, and the lingering questions surrounding the events of January 6th. Specifically, we're looking at an exchange involving Representative Clay Higgins and a witness with deep ties to the FBI. The hearing touched on some of the most sensitive nerves in American politics today: the perceived weaponization of federal agencies, the treatment of protesters, and the long-delayed investigation into the January 6th pipe bomber. The atmosphere in the room was undeniably tense. We saw Representative Higgins lead with some very sharp, provocative rhetoric, essentially accusing the committee's minority members of being more sympathetic to undocumented immigrants than to American citizens appearing as witnesses. This kind of opening sets a specific tone, one of deep-seated frustration and a belief that the system has been inverted. Whether you agree with that characterization or not, it's important to understand where it comes from. It reflects a growing sentiment among a significant portion of the electorate who feel that the federal government has become an adversary to its own people rather than a protector. Higgins pivoted quickly to a broader critique of the COVID-19 era, describing it as a period of unprecedented government oppression. He listed the restrictions on travel, worship, and speech as a fundamental betrayal of American liberty. This is a point of view that continues to resonate. From a political context, this isn't just about public health anymore. It's about the precedent it set for executive power. On the other side of the aisle, proponents of those measures would argue they were necessary for public safety during a global crisis. The tension here lies in the balance between collective security and individual rights, a debate that is as old as the Republic itself but has taken on a new, more aggressive form in the 2020s. The most explosive part of the hearing, however, was the discussion regarding the FBI's conduct. Higgins alleged that the FBI under the Biden administration didn't just investigate, but actively penetrated First Amendment groups and entrapped Americans. These are heavy accusations. To see a sitting member of Congress suggest that federal law enforcement manipulated citizens into committing crimes is a stark indicator of the breakdown in trust between the legislative branch and the intelligence community. The witness, drawing on his own FBI expertise, didn't push back on these concerns. Instead, he reinforced the idea that leadership and messaging at the top of the Department of Justice have fundamentally altered how the FBI operates. We then got into the specifics of the pipe bomber investigation. For years, many Americans have wondered how a suspect could be caught on camera in one of the most surveilled areas in the world and remain unidentified for years. The hearing suggested that the evidence, specifically cellular analytics involving under 200 numbers, had been in the FBI's possession since 2021. The claim made here is that the investigation stalled because the suspects didn't fit a specific political profile the administration wanted to project. This is where we have to look for balance. The FBI often cites the complexity of geofencing and data privacy as reasons for delays in such cases. However, the fact that a breakthrough reportedly happened so quickly following a change in administration or directorship lends weight to the argument that political will, rather than just technical capability, plays a role in what gets solved and when. This brings us to the broader implications for ordinary Americans. When we watch these hearings, it's easy to get lost in the partisan bickering, but the core issue is the integrity of our institutions. If the FBI is seen as a political tool, its effectiveness vanishes. If one side of the country believes the law is only applied to them and not their political opposites, the social contract begins to fray. The hearing highlighted a fundamental divide in how we perceive justice. One side sees a necessary crackdown on an insurrection, while the other sees a government using its vast resources to persecute political dissidents while ignoring evidence that doesn't fit a preferred narrative. My personal take on this is that we are in a dangerous cycle of retributive justice. When leadership changes, there is a rush to fix the perceived wrongs of the previous administration, which often looks like targeting the other side's icons or investigations. The rapid movement on the pipe bomber case after years of stagnation is, on one hand, a relief justice should be served. On the other hand, it raises uncomfortable questions about why it took a change in the political guard to make it happen. Transparency shouldn't be a partisan prize. It should be the baseline. As we look at the facts presented, it's clear that the truth often depends on which window you're looking through. The documents Higgins introduced regarding the TSA and watch lists for domestic terrorists suggest a government that was very aggressive in monitoring its own citizens. For some, this is a necessary defense against extremism. For others, it's the definition of a police state. Finding the middle ground is becoming increasingly difficult because the stakes feel so personal for so many people. Ultimately, these hearings serve as a mirror for the country. They show us a government that is deeply divided and a populace that is increasingly skeptical of the official story. Whether you view Representative Higgins as a champion for the forgotten or a provocateur, the questions he raised about the FBI's transparency and the use of government power are questions that require serious, nonpartisan answers. We deserve a federal law enforcement agency that is beyond reproach, regardless of who sits in the Oval Office. I want to thank you for taking the time to walk through this analysis with me. It's a lot to process, and these issues aren't going away anytime soon. I'm curious to know what you think about the points raised in this hearing. Do you think the delay in the pipe bomber case was a matter of incompetence or intent? And how do you feel about the current state of trust in our federal institutions? Please share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going and try to understand the different perspectives that make up our national dialogue. I'll see you in the next video.